Hello, wonderful people of the great World Wide Web. Welcome to episode 3 of season 3 and the first part of a 3-part series. This one is a real off-road delicacy, TET Bosnia. The whole trip came together almost at the last minute. I had different plans for the summer, but life had other ideas. So I adjusted and went with it. So come along on this ride, a proper test of endurance, riding skills and pain management. Yeah, that too. So let's find out together what's next. In this episode, I'm riding the TET Bosnia and Herzegovina section from Bosansko Grahovo to Kupres, plus a rest day ride from Kupres to Jajce and Travnik. I arrived in Bosansko Grahovo the day before, but it was already too late to start riding the TET route, so I continued on to Drvar and found a place to stay for the night. There, I met a Polish rider on a brand new Himalayan 450. Seeing the two Himalayans parked side by side felt like a little family reunion. Same DNA, different generations. If you are curious about his adventures, I leave the links to his YouTube channel and Instagram into the description. And, as usual, I had to stick to my proud tradition, starting the trip later than planned. Not entirely my fault this time though. A raging thunderstorm woke me up in the morning. I packed my stuff on time, then waited and waited until almost noon for the rain to ease enough to ride back to Bosansko Grahovo and finally hit the TET route. By then, I already skipped breakfast, thinking I find a place along the way. Huge mistake, but we'll get to that later in the video. When I finally rolled into Bosansko Grahovo and hit the TET trail, the sky had cleared completely. Perfect timing, perfect vibes, and my confidence through the roof. That summer, I tackled plenty of technical trails, which you can see in the first 2 videos of season 3. And if you're curious, I leave the links in the description. I learned a ton about my bike, and most importantly, I swapped both tires myself. For this trip, I even fitted proper Enduro Nobis, Mitas Enduro Trail XT. Everything was in place. No excuses, no oops, just pure adventure. The first part of the ride winds mostly through forests, and I somehow managed to take an accidental detour to Shatters Lake. When I say accidental, I really mean it. I already started later than planned and had zero intention of doing any side trips. The trail to Shatters Lake is part of TET Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it is an out and back section, same way there, same way back, and I wanted to skip it this time. Still, thanks to a classic navigation misread, I took the wrong turn and found myself riding straight toward the lake. Sometimes I honestly wonder how I ever make it home with all my wrong turns and navigation mishaps. The name Shatters Lake comes from the mountain above it, called Shatter or Shatter Planina, which translates to tent or tent mountain, because its shape really does resemble a tent. It's a stunning spot, sitting at 1,488 meters above sea level and about 6 to 8 meters deep, with water so beautifully green it almost looks unreal. And since you know I love legends and campsite stories, here is one about how Shatters Lake came to be. Long ago, a wealthy man lived where the lake now lies. Travelers and beggars would sometimes ask him for food or milk, but he always refused. Angered by his selfishness, they cursed him, da Bog dao u zemlju propao. Roughly, may God let him sink into the earth. One day, legend says, the ground opened beneath him, and the man and his home sunk into the earth, the hole filled with water, forming Shatters Lake. Another version of the story says the cruel man wasn't swallowed by the ground at all. Instead, he was turned into a bear. After visiting Shatters Lake, I headed back and continued along the TET route. But since the trail runs mostly to remote areas and tiny villages, I didn't find a single place to eat. Skipping breakfast was starting to feel like a really bad life choice. The hunger slowly crept in, my stomach got louder, and my energy levels began to drop. Luckily, I always carry a few emergency supplies, a couple of tuna cans and a mix of nuts. Not exactly gourmet, but just enough to keep me moving. This was a really enjoyable section. Open landscapes breaking up the forest parts, linked by solid gravel roads. Nothing too demanding, except for a few short stretches with deep tennis ball-sized rocks and rain-carved ravines. Just to remind you to stay awake. With the Bosnian scenery all around, it was pure riding pleasure. From open views, it was back into the forest once more. As the day went on and the kilometers kept piling up beneath me, I have to be completely honest, it wasn't easy. This section alone is over 200 kilometers long, and almost all of it is unpaved. Hunger, soaked and muddy trail sections, and shorter late September days meant darkness was creeping in fast. That pushed me to keep the pace up and take fewer breaks. I really didn't want to get caught in the Bosnian wilderness after dark in autumn, when bears are on their eat-everything program before winter. Let's just say, that's not the best time to surprise a hungry bear with what looks like a free meal, a tired rider on a motorcycle. With darkness creeping in, I took a bit of a risk here and went for a shortcut. By risk, I mean I had absolutely no clue what the trail conditions were like. It turned out mostly fine, with a few steep and challenging sections, but I made it through. Throughout this entire section, I dropped the bike only once. Unfortunately, there is no footage of that moment. Yeah, I know. I clearly need to work on my camera skills, or more precisely on remembering to actually turn the camera on. When a section gets tricky, my brain switches straight into survival mode and the camera is the first thing I forget about. Still, I managed to get myself out of this situation, and honestly, the thought of hungry bears nearby is some of the best motivation you can have to pick the bike up and keep moving. I reached Kupres late, around 8:30, and it was already pitch dark. Somehow the universe decided to smile on me. I was hungry like a wolf, had no accommodation booked, and while there's a campsite nearby, the forecast promised rain through the night and into the next day. Since I planned to stay in Kupres for 2 nights and use the next day for rest and an easy ride to Jajce and Travnik, camping didn't feel like the smartest option. With no restaurants or fast food around, I asked a random woman passing by if she knew anywhere to eat. Only the hotel, she said. Since the hotel had no secure parking and I really didn't feel like carrying muddy luggage into a room, I asked about other options. Turns out she had an apartment and even a nearby garage for the bike. Easy decision. I parked the bike in the garage, changed clothes and headed to the hotel for dinner, where I promptly embarrassed myself. Luckily, no one noticed, or at least I hope they didn't. When I travel, I always try to eat local food, and in Kupres that means pura. Now, where I'm from, pura means turkey. In Kupres it means žganci, a bowl of corn mush. Zero turkey, maximum confusion. The next day, I rode to Jajce and then on to Travnik, the town where I did part of my military service back in the days of the former Yugoslav army. Unfortunately, it's now under Bosnian army control, so I couldn't get inside to see the old barracks where I slept. No worries though, I had another mission in Travnik, legendary Cevapčići at Hari, a spot famous far beyond Bosnian borders. And let me tell you, they absolutely live up to the hype. Damn, that was good. And now I'm hungry just thinking about it. With a full stomach, I rode back toward Kupres, straight into the rain. Get used to it, this won't be the first time it happens in this series. That's it for this episode. Thanks for riding along. If you like it, you know what to do. And if you want to join me for the next part of TET Bosnia and Herzegovina and future adventures, subscribe. Ride safe and keep exploring.